Your Pittsburgh Steelers are about to start their season against the Cincinnati Bengals. We have a lot of things to preview for this game. Last year, the Steelers pulled an upset on the road against the highly ranked and highly regarded Buffalo Bills. The Bengals coming in with a similar reputation, coming off an AFC championship, coming off a 3-game win streak over the Steelers over the past 2 seasons. What do they need to do to overcome this game? Splash plays will be involved. I'm Chris Carter of the North Shore Drive podcast. We'll break that down with Brian Batko for this show, as well as an injury update. Deontay Johnson, also a Steelers offensive lineman that might miss this game. We'll talk about that. You'll also get our key matchups and our final predictions, all for Steelers-Bengals right here in the North Shore Drive podcast. That's brought to you today by the Acrisure Fan Advantage and the power to project one of our Post-Gazette Steelers beat writers into your home or office. Using augmented reality, you can get an exclusive pregame breakdown from a Steelers expert standing in your living room. Get the latest insights on starting lineups, key matchups, and critical stats at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage. No apps or downloads, just insider access to Steelers updates at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage and get a real edge on this week's action. Let's start the show. You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter. And back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. We're both of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and we're getting you ready. It's finally here, week 1, Steelers-Bengals. Everyone's excited. Brian, how you doing? How was the first week of week 1, back into the grind of Steelers work?
It's been great, and it's good to be with you, Chris. This is our maiden voyage on the North Shore Drive. Obviously, we've done this together a time or 3, but yeah, really, really cool to be back with the new format that we've got going from the Post-Gazette. And week 1's been good. You know, it's like, I don't want to say it's nice to have injuries to talk about, but we're going to get into injuries later in the week. It's more of just, it's a sign that the regular season is upon us. Every snap's going to matter. The games are high stakes. So there's real news and there's real information to dig into and to give to our listeners.
I feel you. Some people talk about, the leaves are turning brown and all this other stuff, but the fall. No, it's that we can finally get back to the normal groove of everything and not.
I thought you say no. I'm seeing DNP in an Excel spreadsheet from the Steelers media department. That lets me know that football season is here.
Yes, we are here. But okay.
Hope everybody's healthy, of course.
Right, of course. We hope it. We're not saying that we wish anyone injuries upon anyone, but. In all seriousness, we'll get to the injury talk in a minute, but this matchup with the Bengals, we'll go over our key matchups and our final predictions later, but this seems very similar how the Bills weren't AFC champions last year, but they were a major threat, and not many people gave the Steelers a chance going into Buffalo to win last year, and they did. And a big part of it was because of a blocked punt, Miles Killebrew, that turned everything around. The Steelers pounced on it. They got a score, and it changed that game around. This year, they're playing the Bengals in their house. It's a bit more emotional. The Bengals are going to be hanging an AFC championship banner. They're going to be able to celebrate that, and they've beaten the Steelers 3 times in a row now. What is the thing that you're focusing on? I want to talk about Miles Killebrew in a bit because he was named captain. That was actually very interesting, and you have a great story that you're coming out with. But what do you think is the aspect of this game that is the splash play that Mike Tomlin would call that the Steelers need to make this happen to spark an upset?
Well, it could be a few different things. And yeah, I mean, first off, you are talking to the only person from the Post-Gazette who picked the Bengals to win the Super Bowl this year in our staff predictions. So I obviously think they're a very good team. It's difficult for me to find holes or flaws with this roster, maybe a couple here or there, but I think they're really good. I think they're motivated too after the way that Super Bowl slipped through their grasp. So that tells me absolutely the Steelers are going to need some big plays to go their way, similar to how it was week 1 last year up there in Buffalo. Offensively, maybe a guy like George Pickens gets behind the defense and shows the kind of playmaking ability that he flashed really throughout Latrobe and in that first preseason game, certainly with the 26-yard touchdown catch in the back of the end zone that was just a thing of beauty. Defensively, I could see Cam Hayward, and I mentioned the Bengals do have some Achilles heels potentially. They've got a rookie starting at left guard, and it's not a first-round pick. It's a fourth-round guy out of North Dakota State. So maybe he gets bullied by Cam Hayward, and Cam Hayward gets in there, strip sack, something to that effect, or Micah Fitzpatrick picks off a deep ball from Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. Or, as you alluded to, Chris, the third phase of the game. We know it helped the Steelers beat the Bills last year. Miles Killebrew coming through with one of his 2 blocked punts in 2021. I thought he should have been a Pro Bowler last year for his work on special teams. He was really good. Those things are kind of fluky, of course, but he was named a special teams captain for a reason. He makes a lot of plays. And like you said, got a story coming out on him in the Sunday paper about why he is what he calls himself, a professional teamer, and what that can bring to the table for a club that puts a high emphasis on that part of the game.
Now, I want to come back to the Steelers in a bit, because there's a lot. Like, you gave several different ways that a splash play could take over a game, but Miles Killebrew specifically, he was named a captain. He was injured very early in camp, didn't look good, didn't come back. We didn't see him pretty much at all during camp. When that was happening, I'm thinking, like, man, that dude's gone. Like you're a special teamer and you're out. They kept him the entire time. They let him work his way back, and then they name him a special teams captain going into the season. You got to work on the story. You got to talk to him. What kind of led Miles Killebrew to focus on this road to make his way in the NFL?
Yeah, I think for starters, the first thing I noticed about him even last year in his first season with the Steelers, he's a very eloquent guy. He's insightful, he's analytical, and I think that kind of lends itself to his makeup too. So other players kind of look to him. But just as far as on the field, every single team, you're not going to even know the guys that fit this bill for the Seahawks or the Dolphins or the Colts. But I think just about every team has 1 or 2 guys who they've got a position next to their name, but their real job is special teams. They don't really play any snaps offensively or defensively. And, Killebrew was telling me that, if you want to call it swallowing your pride, whatever, it's a way that he feeds his family by making plays on punts and kickoffs and getting the job done there, even though everybody would like to be the quarterback or the star pass rusher, or in his case, the starting safety. That's not how it's played out for him to this point in his NFL career. And yet he's still putting food on the table, and he's getting the job done in the third phase of the game. So I just thought that was interesting to hear from him about that slice of NFL life. Again, you don't really talk to those guys all that often in the locker room, but the Steelers, they've kind of had a pipeline of those types. Tyler Matakevich, Jordan Dangerfield. That's kind of what Robert Spillane was too before he got carved out a bigger role in the defense for himself.
We hear it every summer when they go to St. Vincent, or for a while when they were at Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium. Danny Smith, if you impress Danny Smith, you will find a way on this team. Even if you don't have a solidified place on, in scrimmage, you're going to find a way on that roster if you make Danny Smith happy, the special teams coach. So really awesome stuff there. I'm very intrigued to read more about Miles Killebrew. If you want to read more, be sure to pick up the Sunday paper of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and read Brian's preview, as well as our entire PG staff's preview, getting you ready for week 1 of the NFL season, Steelers-Bengals. We'll talk about that matchup, injury news that we've heard. We'll talk about all of that in just a minute here on the North Shore Drive podcast here in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But first, got to talk to you guys about one of our great sponsors, and that's MyBookie. The Bills and the Rams played just last night, and that's to let you know it's time to prepare for your winning season at MyBookie. Whether you're a veteran or a first-timer, MyBookie gets you the most for your money with a double deposit bonus. It's quick and easy. A $250 deposit puts $500 in your account, and you can use your funds to bet instantly on as many games, contests, and props as you want. To claim your bonus, register today and use the promo code NSD for North Shore Drive, designed to add more excitement to the games and sports that you love. Bet on team win totals, predict the Super Bowl winner, or use the MyBookie prop builder to secure the bag. Again, use that promo code NSD to claim your double deposit bonus, because your winning season begins today exclusively at MyBookie. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. Brian, let's update everything going on with the injury front. We know going into Thursday, the only two guys on the list were Marcus Allen was limited in practice and Deontay Johnson. Of course, everyone looking what's going on with Deontay Johnson. Will he play? We saw the official injury report, but you also seem to get an inclination from Chase Claypool that Deontay Johnson would play. What's your read on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, you're listening to this on Friday morning, hopefully, and that means the final report of the week will come out Friday afternoon. We'll have everybody's status designation. But, I was a little surprised Thursday at the optimism around Deontay Johnson because just, Deontay himself on Wednesday talked after practice and didn't really paint the rosiest picture of his health and how he was feeling. You almost got the sense that he had a setback of some sort in his limited practice, and yet Thursday morning, Chase Claypool saying they expect to have him. They're excited to have him. Matt Canada says they're planning to have him. So that was all good to hear. And I'll tell you what, a new injury showed up for him on the practice report for Thursday, but I'll tell you why that might actually be a good thing.
Okay.
He was listed as a limited participant again for the second day in a row, so that that there wasn't a setback. He wasn't a DNP, which is always nice. But he was also listed as having cramps, Chris. So it says shoulder/cramps for Deontay Johnson. Kind of makes me wonder, would he have been a full participant with that left shoulder that was dinged up in the preseason finale, but just maybe couldn't go all the way or couldn't finish because of some cramping, which, as we know, that's usually not the most significant thing in the world. You're usually ready and raring to go. Right. Yeah. After halftime or something. So that could actually be good news for Deontay Johnson, but another starter on the Steelers offense, maybe not so good news.
What's the news on this? Because I looked at it and we see it's an offensive lineman. And if there's one group on this team that can't lose any single person, I think it is the offensive line.
And maybe you could make an argument that this is the most important player on their offensive line. You could probably argue he's their best, or at least has looked the best so far in the preseason. And that's Chuks Okorafor. He's the most experienced member of the group with the Steelers. He's been here the longest. He's their right tackle that they re-signed to a 3-year deal in the offseason. But he didn't practice on Thursday. He's listed as he's got a back issue. We know those can be tricky. You never want to pop up on the injury report midweek. So, hey, maybe he'll be back out there Friday and everything will be, hunky-dory, but that's always a weird phrase. Hunky-dory. What does that mean? Anyway.
That's something y'all say out in Shaler.
I don't even know, but that sounds like something my grandpa would say. God rest his soul. But no, I mean, with Chuks Okorafor, if he can't go, if he's DNP again Friday, I guess you'd turn to Trent Scott, who, he's versatile. He's been in the league since 2018. He spent the last couple years with Pat Meyer, the Steelers O-line coach in Carolina. I think he's probably played a little bit more inside during camp in the preseason than tackle, but I think he would be the next man up. And, you'd have to throw a guy into the starting lineup who you initially cut and then brought him back after you put a couple guys on IR. So things just continue to look dicey for the Steelers O-line going into a Bengals defense that's pretty loaded up front.
They have a lot of talent. Trey Hendrickson, of course, leading that group off the edge. Him and Dan Moore will be a major matchup for this game. And here's the thing, if Chuks is down, you don't have a backup. Like I was thinking in this game, like if Dan Moore was playing terribly, they might try to rotate in someone else in there. But if that other someone else is taking care of the right tackle spot, you won't be able to in that situation. Now, granted, like you said, this could be precautionary. He could be back Friday. Pay attention to our team of Pittsburgh's Post-Gazette writers will be on hand Friday, giving you the updates, the injury reports, and getting you ready for this game. But here on this Friday morning episode that we're putting out, the North Shore Drive podcast, it does seem kind of dire there. But this offensive line, they're going to be tasked with setting a strong tone in this game. And I do think that Chukwuma Okorafor, even though the left tackle, him playing, he can't fix Dan Moore Jr. But when you have one good player on your offensive line, other guys feed off of that. That's how Ramon Foster played so well for so long. He was next to Marquise Pouncey, who was next to David DeCastro, and their success helped build upon each other and build that chemistry. And to me, Chukwuma Okorafor is a necessary part for them to establish any sort of chemistry this year.
And I guess we should mention, they did bring in Jesse Davis last week on cut down day, trading for him from the Vikings, but He's definitely more of an inside guy. I think he's much more comfortable at guard. He has done everything, every position except center in his NFL career, and he's willing to do anything. But I think they traded for him for interior depth and maybe can push out to tackle in a pinch. If that pinch comes, a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks into his Steelers career, he would certainly be thrown into the fire without having really much reps or experience at all with this offense.
That's what I was going to ask you too about Jesse Davis, because again, he has started at tackle. He hasn't been great. Like he's been a starter. He has a lot of starting experience. So maybe the Steelers say, hey, you're a veteran. This is why we went and got you. Go out and be a veteran in this moment. Just don't be a liability. But he hasn't exactly been great when he's been on the field. It's why the Vikings were so quickly to say, hey, we don't need him around here. And I think that's something that maybe plays into this equation. I imagine the Steelers might have some last minute adjustments in practice to do that. Because also,
you'd probably have to run the ball more. I mean, if
exactly.
Chuks Okorafor is not in there, I'd say pass pro is his strength to begin with. Then whether it's Trent Scott or Jesse Davis or whomever, you've got to try to use you got to try to play to their strengths and scheme to what they can do best. And that's, I think, run blocking. So I don't envy Matt Canada's task this week.
I don't envy it either, but hey, this was always going to be a big challenge for the offense this year, was to get things on track. It's the first week of no Ben Roethlisberger in the Steelers era, so we'll get to see what that's like. The good news is the defense seems healthy. They're going to need to be a big part of this Steelers game plan to win. We'll talk about that game plan to win, matchups, our predictions in just a minute here on the North Shore Drive podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about one of our great sponsors, and that's Yinzer's PGH, the awesome clothing company that's going to help you make sure you have all your fan gear ready for this season. Hey, Yinzers, listen up. The Steelers campaign is ready to roll, so you need to show your support for your black and gold. It's easy. With 2 legendary shops in the Strip District, plus an online growing store that's getting all the more products out there, Yinzer's in the Berg is the place to go for Pittsburgh sports apparel, accessories, and much, much more. We'll see you in the Strip District, or check them out online. Shop YinzersPGH.com. That's YinzersPGH.com to get all your Pittsburgh sports apparel. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. Brian, okay, before we get to actual predictions, I want you to give me, I'm going to do 3 keys.
You want to shout out to Jimmy from Yinzers? Shout out to Jimmy Cohen.
Shout out to Jimmy from Yinzers. Yes, good people over there. Absolutely. But I wanted to ask you, what is your biggest key for the Steelers? Everyone does 3 keys, but give me like the factor the Steelers need to lock in this game if they want to pull off the upset. We talked about splash plays, but I think there's got to be a key element here.
Well, I think football is really a pretty simple game, Chris, and a lot of the times, you can make a key to a victory as broad or as specific as you want. I'll kind of just ride Mike Tomlin's coattails from his Tuesday presser. The first thing it's never a bad idea. I think Mike Tomlin knows a lot more about football than me, for sure. Maybe not you, but definitely me.
No, he definitely knows more than me. I will not put myself
well, the first thing that he mentioned previewing Steelers-Bengals was turnovers. You simply can't turn the ball over. That was a thorn in the Steelers' side last year when they played Cincinnati. That Mike Hilton pick 6 just completely deflated them in that 41-10 loss. The interception by Logan Wilson thrown by Ben Roethlisberger at in that first game in Pittsburgh was just a horrendous play by a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and another one that kind of set the tone. So you got to take care of the football, especially against a good team. Maybe you can make some mistakes against the Jets, or when you play some of the lighter teams on your schedule. But this Bengals team, they've got confidence for themselves now, especially against the team that used to dominate them in the Steelers. They've got an offense that likes to capitalize on those situations where it's sudden change for the defense. So I'll agree with Coach Tomlin here and say, if you're this specific Steelers team too, where we don't know how many explosive chunk plays you're going to be able to create, you better be able to sustain long drives, and that means taking care of the football.
I completely agree with you there. This to the Steelers' credit, no Steelers quarterback threw an interception, although Mason Rudolph should have thrown one. No Steelers quarterback threw an actual interception in the preseason this year. Encouraging stuff because, Brian, you and I have both sat through some pretty bad backup quarterback play in Steelers preseasons in years past. But this year, each of those guys moved the ball. I think it's a good sign for Mitch Trubisky that there's a system that Matt Canada has him working there that has, hey, make these safe reads, make these decisions, that it's not as risky, but it does give you opportunity to get the ball in the hands of some really talented playmakers. I'm kind of with you on this, that one, the turnovers can't happen, but I think a big part of this game, you don't want to have Mitch Trubisky have to make too many big decisions in this game. I think the biggest thing is it's going to come down to their playmakers in the passing game, and maybe in Najee Harris in the run game as well. But some of these plays where you hit Chase Claypool, if he gets some passes over the middle, he's going to need to break a tackle and turn like an 8-yard gain into a 20-yard gain, or a 10-yard gain to a 30-yard gain, something along those lines. Same thing for George Pickens, as you said earlier, maybe even Deontay Johnson if he's healthy. I wouldn't put it past Pat Freiermuth to be in these guys.
I was going to say that. I think Freiermuth could have a nice day considering, that Bengals defense. I think their linebackers are good, but if there's any area to exploit them and attack them, it's probably there, because you don't want to be putting one up top for Jesse Bates to make a play on the ball.
Right.
We already talked about how we don't know if they're going to be able to, run the ball as effectively as they want to. So maybe you can get Pat Freiermuth over the middle, or like you said, somebody like Chase Claypool getting a mismatch.
Right. And the key is trust them. I think if you're excited about anything on the Steelers offense, is that they have a lot of skill position players who can make plays with the football in their hands. Trust them to make those plays. Don't force Mitch Trubisky to have to make several passes. Eventually he's going to have to do it a few times, but you don't want him making about 10 to 12 different passes that have to go into a really tight passing window in this game. That's not why you signed him. You signed him to manage your offense and throw the ball to the guys who are in open space to let them make the big plays in this offense. That to me is a major key. But all right, we've gone over.
I was going to say, and let's just be honest with Mitch Trubisky. A lot of the criticism that he took when he struggled in Chicago was centered around his inability to read defenses and the decision-making aspect of it. So if you're the Bengals, you want to put him in those situations where, hey, you didn't play last year in the regular season hardly at all. You haven't really been under this microscope in a couple of years. So go ahead and prove that you can beat us with these short throws and that you can nickel and dime us and dink and dunk down the field.
I guess before we get to the predictions, I got to ask you this, because I asked Ray this same question on the Monday episode of the North Shore Drive podcast. But do you feel Mitch Trubisky is ready to handle that role, or do you think that he might be in over his head to start this season with the problems in the offensive line, and just this is going to be a very new experience against a hyped up Bengals team?
I've been lukewarm on the Trubisky addition since they made it back in March. I don't necessarily think he's a bad quarterback, but you're gonna kind of have to grade on a curve right now in the NFL because there's so many really good ones. Even you can be a good quarterback, but maybe you're still in the bottom 5 to 10 of the league, which is where a lot of the national outlets are ranking Trubisky these days. So I'm not going to say he's not ready, because I didn't see that from him in the 3 preseason games. I thought he looked pretty crisp and pretty sharp. So I think he's ready in that sense, but I just don't know still that I see a quarterback who's going to be able to actually go out there and win games for you or elevate the offense around him. Maybe those skill guys, they don't necessarily need to be elevated, because I think they're pretty talented. But, if you need somebody to kind of cover up for a patchwork offensive line, or just a game plan that you're coming, or like you're trying to play from behind because the Bengals hit some big plays on you, that's where I'm kind of still unsure and not sold on Trubisky.
I think that's where he has to prove everyone. He's
Right.
going to have to prove people wrong and prove the Steelers right about their investment into him and making him the QB1 for the season. All right, Brian, it's prediction time. It's time to get. I want you to give me your score for this game, who you think can win, and where's the turning point in this game? What's the point in this game where it flips on for whoever's about to win and how it plays out?
I'm going to go Bengals 20, Steelers 10. I think the offense will start slow for the Steelers because of basically everything that we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. I think running the ball is still going to be a struggle. I think Trubisky is going to be, needing to escape the pocket a lot and trying to throw on the run. That's going to lead to some early 3 and outs and, probably some, issues with field position. So as far as a turning point, I just can't look past Jamar Chase. I think the Steelers defense is is going to be good this year. And I think holding this Bengals offense to 20 would very much be a valiant effort on the road in Cincinnati. But I think they hit on one big play from Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase, maybe for a touchdown, maybe just down into the red zone or inside the 10. And we're going to look back and say that was the turning point of the game.
Certainly could be. Jamar Chase was a turning point in that first game. I mean, he was the Steelers were the first team that he scored multiple touchdowns against in the NFL. And I think that was kind of oh snap, he is that good type of moment for a lot of people. He is that dude. But that's going to be interesting. I'm going to give you my score prediction here. And I had to adjust it a bit because I didn't want to copy one of my Locked On Bengals friend, James Rapine, because he gave the same score prediction, but in the opposite direction. I'm going to say the Bengals do score 20 points, but I'm going to give the Steelers 24 points in this game. I think you're going to see some of those defensive turnovers. The Bengals are coming into this game feeling really good about themselves. And I truly think, you picked them for the Super Bowl. I think they're talented enough. I think they're where the Rams were 2 or 3 years ago after they lost to the Patriots. I think that there's some revamping that they need to do. They're a young team. I think that they're going to need to experience what it's like to have the target on your back every single week. And there might be a sense of like, oh, wait, this isn't as easy just to get back there last year. They finished a half game better than the Steelers. I don't think that these teams are that far apart. I think the team to watch this in the division this year is the Ravens. I think they're going to win the AFC North, but I got the Bengals losing this one. I think that they'll win the second one this year based on, we still have a long way to get there. But this one, I think the Steelers in a similar spirit. Defense makes a lot of play. TJ Watt, Micah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, those guys come up with big plays to give some short field to the Steelers offense. And like you said, it's got to come down to turnovers. I think the Steelers get him this time. Early last year in the first game, TJ Watt didn't play. He was injured, and I think that was a big part of that game. With these guys being healthy on defense, I think that's the sign that they need. The offense gets a couple big plays, and that's what spurs them to victory. But I don't have a problem with anyone that's picking the Bengals because they absolutely should be the favorite coming off of how they finished last season. And we just don't know what the Steelers are going to look like, especially on offense.
Yeah, the Bengals, they made some nice additions to their offensive line this offseason. Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, and La'el Collins at right tackle, which, I'm not saying La'el Collins is going to shut down TJ Watt. Not many people do that. I think maybe the only right tackle who had a good game against him last year was Brian O'Neill, a Pitt man with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes,
so that doesn't happen often, but I think that will help this Bengals offense continue to hum along at a pretty good rate. And, I hear you, Chris. I think that their defense, might be a little bit suspect. That might be where, hey, can they keep it up for the entire season? But in this one, I think they might have enough to overwhelm a Steelers offensive line that we just haven't seen much from.
Very could be. We have more preview work from Brian, Ray Fittipaldo, Jerry Dulac, and our entire PG staff that will be on hand in Cincinnati for this 1 p.m. Sunday. So do check out the preview in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and all the work that they've done leading up to this game. Brian, thanks so much for joining me here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Let people know how they can follow you online and anything else that they should be looking out for.
Yeah, man. Follow me on Twitter if you don't already. I hope you do, but it's just my name right there with no space and a little @ sign right here. And of course, post-gazette.com. And we've got predictions from a bunch of Post-Gazette staffers. Those are always fun to look at and see if you agree with us, disagree. You can print it out, pull it out of the drawer 3 months from now. Tell us how stupid we all are. I did capsules on all 32 teams in the NFL. So, a lot of good stuff to check out. And like Chris said, there's going to be more flowing throughout the weekend and into Sunday right up to 1 p.m. kickoff.
Absolutely. Do check out all the great work here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thanks, Brian, for joining us. I'm Chris Carter, host of the North Shore Drive podcast. Stay tuned. We got our recap episode that'll happen Monday, letting you know how things went down on Sunday. But until then, check out all the great work of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Be sure to check out all the work. We got all the writers there. I'm going to be at Pitt versus Tennessee. So myself and Noah
Let's go. That's another big game.
We got a huge weekend of sports here in Pittsburgh.
Top 25 matchup at Acrisure Stadium. Ooh, I'll be in Cincinnati for Steelers-Bengals. So, it's going to be a lot of – I actually hope that the Jerry Dulac car makes it to Cincy in time for 3:30 kickoff so I don't have to miss a second of your coverage of Pitt versus the Vols.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that game. It's going to be huge. And Noah Hiles and I'm still working on my preview. It will be out later today on Friday to get you guys ready. Thanks so much for checking us out. Stay tuned for more from the North Shore Drive podcast. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, wherever podcasts are hosted for free. We'll be back Monday recapping Steelers-Bengals right here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down below in the description.